Welcome to a football show here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Paul Kuharsky, and I am Braden Gall. PK, good to see you. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Happy Memorial Day.
Good little holiday there. That was pretty good over here.
We're off and running here. Yes, it was a good little holiday. Lots of rain. I hope everybody had a good time and remembered all the reasons that we celebrate Memorial Day. So there you go. Sinkers Beverages is also a good way to celebrate Memorial Day. I hope you had a few beverages from Sinkers, responsibly, of course, in moderation. A couple of craft beers from a local brewery, for example, East Nashville Beer Works, Yazoo Brewing Company, Tennessee Brew Works. All of them you can get at Sinkers Beverages in their award-winning craft beer retail fridge. That's it. Sinkers Beverages, everybody. Make sure you fill out the survey linked in the show notes. Press forward midtn.news. Press forward midtn.news. Takes 5 minutes. It's an anonymous survey, and it allows this organization, Press Forward, which is an organization managing 40 counties in Middle Tennessee, trying to do the best job they can in funding and providing resources to independent journalism and local journalism to make sure our news ecosystem is healthy and vibrant and fertile. And so make sure you support them by filling out that survey linked in the show notes on the podcast app or on your YouTube page as well. Good morning, fellas, says Bustin' Diamond. I'm not going to bring the other one on here, your other comment, because that's the other guys. Ed, can we break down the Knicks OKC Spurs final? As two New York Knicks fans here. So
listen,
congratulations to us.
Yes, pump up us. Look, I'm not that into it, obviously, so I don't want to be that big of a bandwagon jumper, but I just think it's dangerous to presume that one side automatically is going to win this thing. And OKC and the Spurs are going to continue to beat each other up while the Knicks have gotten used to winning by 40 a night. I wouldn't expect a team that has just swept 2 rounds to go get swept.
I would pick OKC to beat us if I had to. I just think they're a better team all around. But Mitchell Robinson's a good matchup for Wemby, I think. I don't know. So we'll see what the matchups look like. I just am celebrating. I was 12 years old. My dad took me to Game 6 against the Rockets.
That's amazing.
In Houston. I think Starks was fouled on the final possession, but whatever, people don't forget. And then, of course, I cried.
Hit a shot from the foul line or anywhere else that night.
No, that was Game 7.
Oh,
he went 1 for 17 in Game 7. But no, I've been a fan my whole life. My dad lived there. He lived in the city in New York in the late 60s, early 70s. So he grew up with Willis Reed and the Knicks and the amazing Mets of 69. And so that's how I got those problems, PK. But it's fun to see first time since I was literally in high school that the New York Knicks are playing in an NBA Finals, and Arsenal won the EPL championship. I'm having a good week, PK.
Yeah, that's old news already. For the Knicks in the celebration stage here, I just love the excuse making of all the losing teams, and the Cavaliers guy should be. What time is it? Has he been fired yet? I mean, to come out and say analytically that you won 2 of the first 3 games in that series, you should have been fired on the spot.
Not a good look. Yeah.
No matter what you believe analytically, let me tell you a secret. There's a scoreboard that runs during the game, and it determines who wins or loses, and none of your analytics overcome the actual facts of the game. That is one of the dumbest things ever said. It's going to be an albatross around his neck. And I can't see how he is not fired for one of the best versions of their team post LeBron showing up so poorly. Well, and quitting so regularly.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, the Knicks are making people quit almost every single night. Unprecedented run by this team. Again, I'm assuming we will be disappointed by all of this. Morning, Daniel. Good to see you. So we'll keep an eye on that. Look, I'm excited about it. I've been able to, text and text with the brother and the dad while also sharing those moments with my daughters during the summer. They can stay up late and watch the games. It's pretty cool. So
again,
it's been a fun little run. We'll see what happens.
I'm excited we're on the same side here, but you need to be a Bucks fan. I mean, I'm very stringent on because are you from the Green Bay, Milwaukee?
I lived in Madison. I was born in Madison. I lived there for 6 months. I moved away when I was 6 months old.
You should be a Giants fan. I mean, you don't get to pick and choose your fandom from the whole potpourri. It's got to be where you live, what your dad rooted for, or some relative who played for a team.
It's all my dad.
Willy-nilly.
Paul, everyone is my dad, and each one of them are where he lived, which I think is totally on the. I'm also very strict on fandoms.
Okay, well, when he grew up, did he live?
He was in Wisconsin, and then he moved to New York when he was like 10.
Okay,
or 9,
so at
and
10 he needs to have picked if he's going to root for Wisconsin teams or New York team.
No, he doesn't have. You don't have to pick a state. That's ridiculous. He
picked the front runner of both.
He was a Packers fan because in 1965 when he was 9 or whatever, the Ice Bowl happens and the Packers, and his dad was a Packers fan. My grandfather was a Packers fan, and they moved to New York, and he grew up listening to Rangers games on the radio, Knicks games on the radio, and Mets games on the radio, going to those games. And I was born in Wisconsin, and at 5 years old lived in Connecticut, and my first sporting event ever was Shea Stadium and Madison Square Garden. And those are two very real ways. No, I don't have to switch.
So you come over to Knicks, to Giants or Jets.
Why? We already had an established football fandom. And at my point, I didn't have a choice. I was just given this stuff by my father.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a choice. Your father or the person in your life that gets you involved in a sport, you absolutely can adopt their team. That's totally fair. Those are
totally fair. I'm taking this a generation back. Your father screwed it up.
You don't have to like all Atlanta teams or all Dallas teams. Like if you lived in
Atlanta or Dallas, yeah, you do.
Well, if you lived in multiple places growing up, it's okay. Not everybody just lived in one place, you know.
You're bored.
Why aren't you a Cleveland Browns fan? Why aren't you a Cleveland Indians fan?
When I was 7, and that was the age of decision making.
Fandom is complicated.
It's not that complicated.
Are you done? Yeah,
I'm done.
Okay. You want to look? Why don't you take this negative energy where you get to shake your fist and scold everybody? Why don't we
route God?
Why don't we take it to route God? Because this is what Bustin wants to hear about. We're going to talk about the overreaction to OTAs, how to accurately cover OTAs over the course of. We got another practice coming up on Friday. We'll have like the opportunity to sort of evaluate the coverage of this stuff, and a great story by Blake Bedingfield on paulkuharsky.com about drafting Kevin Byard. So I want to kind of go back behind the scenes because I really like this kind of series you guys are doing where we look at the drafting of Derrick Henry or the drafting of Corey Davis, or now we're looking at the drafting of Kevin Byard, and an interesting story in and of himself, not going to the combine, etc. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about coverage and expectations, but also the overreaction here, one of which is this route guide, which I guess I didn't know anything about this person. So
I don't know much about him. I know some of the quarterback guys. Listen, my general stance is the good guys at this, Carson Palmer's brother, Jordan Palmer, is a relatively well-regarded quarterback guy. He worked with Will Levis. I don't know if he worked with him this offseason. He worked with him last offseason. He gets in sync with the Titans coaches. Gets in sync with Will Levis and works hard with Will Levis to help him improve on the things that are going to help him with the Titans. And the last thing that he would do is come out and try to make a name for himself by being critical of the Titans coaches. He's working in sync as best as he can with the Titans coaches. And that's the way to do these jobs well. Route God, first off, anybody who wants to be taken seriously by serious people puts their name on their work. All right. If you're operating by a nickname, you're 10 notches down for me right out of the gate.
Is his name somewhere on his, like, if you go to his website, you don't have to have it in your handle. I'm not going to judge you for that, but like,
I don't know. Somebody check on that, but I don't think so from what I saw.
Okay.
I'd never heard of him before. That doesn't make or break him. But these guys, look, he may be expert on receiving drills and all of that until he talks to Greg Lewis and knows what exactly Greg Lewis is doing as the Titans wide receiver coach, a successful wide receivers coach, and a successful NFL wide receiver who goes, by the way, by Greg Lewis.
His name is James Everett, and it's on his Instagram account. It says James Everett right there. So
okay. I
don't know if you know this, but people aren't on Twitter. just so you know.
Look, I want professional NFL coaches first and foremost coaching me if I'm an NFL player. and critiquing me. And if I want to make an NFL team and excel on an NFL team, the guy that I'm most trying to please is my position coach. First and foremost, my position coach has the most influence with the head coach and the general manager in terms of my daily progress. That you see it in Hard Knocks and everything. They have regular meetings where they sit down and say, all right, how are receivers? What's going on? And he'll say, so-and-so's really shown me some progress this week. His toughness is up. He's been making some hard catches. He's playing through a left ankle ding, yada, yada, yada. And Route God has no bearing on any of that stuff. Now, if Route God helped me get better from January to April, doing things that will impress Lewis, right, that's great. If he's fighting Lewis and if he's setting me up to look at that drill and say, oh my God, Route God is telling me this drill makes no sense and I'm running it begrudgingly because my private receiver coach is telling me that this makes no sense. That's counteractive to the whole operation. And I think that's bad.
Is Ridley work? Do NFL players work with him?
I don't know anything about him, but I'll say this. I'll say this too. And NFL coaches point this out a lot of times when you're talking to them. The Titans are paying Carnell Tate. He is their employee. Route God is the employee of whatever receivers are working for him. So who is working to please whom in these relationships? The player is working to please the coach of the team. The coach is working to please the player in these relationships with the January to April thing. So unless you're super legitimate, and even if you're super legitimate, you say to the guy, hey, this is what I want, and you have to hold me to this, and you're not bending it. But a lot of coaches have told me over the years, listen, when the guy gets to this workout and he doesn't like doing this certain thing and this coach wants him to be happy with it, he's going to bend the workout to make it something, unless he's Derrick Henry type worker. This coach wanting to maintain the business relationship with the player is going to bend the workout to please the player, right? No NFL coach is bending the workout to please the player. The player is an employee of that coach.
This is just a fact. I'm not saying it means anything, but 619,000 followers on Instagram. Robert Saleh has 23,000. The Titans have about 1 million. He's worked with, it looks, Roman Wilson, Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Ridley, a number of others. I think both things can be true. Like all things can be true. He doesn't have a very big following on Twitter because Twitter, again, is just not a thing that matters to people in real life.
But this guy wants to be on social media and popular because that's how he markets himself. Greg Lewis doesn't need to market himself to anybody to anybody but Mike Borgonzi.
Two things can be true. Like his observations around movement being a different thing you're working on than X's and O's being a different thing that maybe that the Titans were working on in these drills. All of that could be totally fair and realistic. And it sounds like NFL players and teams, and from his popularity, that there is a lot of value in what he's providing. That being said, we have, unless he has communicated with the person designing the drill for the actual outcome of this particular drill, and on a follow-up, it's still just a tiny little piece that we're allowed to show the world from practice. We're allowed to show you these tiny little pieces of practice that I assume, after talking to, I don't know, the Vrabel regime, the Callahan regime, and I assume the Saleh regime, everything in practice is designed on purpose to build on itself and connect to the thing before and after. And so I think everything can be true. Like his observations around the movements can be totally true. Your observation and Greg Lewis's designing of a rep could have a totally different idea around it. And without knowing what it was designed to work, maybe they were running that drill to work on something that they're going to work on in team later on in that practice. Like they could be connected.
It's very dangerous to draw.
Like all things can be true. Yes.
From afar. Here's the other thing.
And he wants clicks. He wants attention. Like
that exposes him to me. He's saying, well, they got a 20 or 30-minute individual period. There's never been a 30-minute individual period in an NFL practice. The individual period is 8 to 10 to 12 minutes.
Maybe.
I think when McCoy took over, he extended individual from 10 to 12, maybe.
That's a large
12, and that's a long individual period. So that this guy's popping off that there's a 20 or 30-minute individual period tells me he doesn't really know how NFL practices work. And if he doesn't really know how NFL practices work, I'm far less interested in his quote unquote expertise.
I guess here's my take. Like, much like everything that's happening on the internet, I don't know why we have to get sucked into the nuances, which feel like are not the valuable parts of this. Like, if he's got some interesting stuff that he can teach people about how to run these routes, or if he's watching Carnell Tate break out of a route and he says, I like how he does this, or I don't like how he does that, there could be tremendous value in that. And we can also say, like, well, but the coaching staff is designing stuff over here. Like, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be all the things that we're yelling about. Like, it can just be like one guy who knows what he's talking about making an observation. Like,
put up Daniel Caribbean's post there. That's pretty good. All they need to know is Traylon Burks liked the post,
which is a whole other story altogether. Did Burks ever play for Lewis?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think so. Yeah, I didn't think so. Why would any NFL team take his advice after he calls out a coaching staff? Again, who knows?
He doesn't aspire. This is a beautiful thing. Like, he doesn't aspire to work for an NFL team anymore. It's easy to declare that you don't aspire to work for an NFL team anymore after you've reached the point where it's clear you're not going to work for an NFL team.
If I
don't aspire to write for the New York Times anymore.
If I was him, I would be fine with the current living apparently he's making. NFL receivers come to him to pay him to train him. It sounds like a good job, frankly. So ultimately, I want to back up and I want to say, like, in general, like, I think, as I said with Nick on Friday's episode, I try to couch it and clear my throat as much as possible, which is, as much as one practice can give you good feelings, good vibes, positive trajectory, positive direction, whatever phrase you want to use, like, it has to all be couched with, it was one of what's going to be weeks of practices that's then going to turn into training camp, that's then going to turn into the season. But you could have seen something negative, you could have seen something inconsistent, and it might not have meant anything. But seeing something good is at least a positive development, a positive step for the offense to look faster, for Cam Ward to look lighter, for Tate to look smooth and comfortable in the offense. No, they're not going up against high-level defenses and even the starting defensive unit. Like, there's so much couching and throat clearing. But it's okay for Titans fans to be like, that looked pretty good. Like, I'm okay with that. I liked what I saw. Let's see more of it.
Absolutely. But they had 3 sessions last week, and I made a point out of asking Wan'Dale Robinson, like, hey, is Tate looked like this, in the other 2? And he was like, he's been good, but he didn't do that. So if we had seen Wednesday and not Thursday, or whatever day we saw, were we there Thursday or Friday?
Thursday,
I think. So if we had been there Wednesday and not Thursday, we might have written and talked about Tate, but we wouldn't have seen a 3-touchdown practice, and the hype wouldn't have been what it is right now. So I think that's an important consideration. Like, we caught him on a good day, which was they had to make one of those 3 practices open, and he happened to have a really special day, 6-catch, 3-touchdown day on the day. Also, the deep touchdown needs a caveat that Winston and Harris got crossed up, and it was a blown coverage. Nobody wants to hear about the blown coverage. They just want to hear he scored a deep touchdown. So look, he was really good. He looks really smooth. He lived up to the billing on the day. And there's no reason not to believe that he's going to be that guy on opening day. But as a singular day apart from everything, it really is pretty meaningless.
I guess, maybe not to go back to route god in my brain, but like, it's just, guys, you don't have to, like, while we want you to watch and read everything we put on the internet, you don't have to like look at everything on the internet, especially social media. I think if you read paulkuharsky.com or you listen to our shows, I think those are nuanced, thoughtful, valuable pieces of content. Somebody popping off on a vertical video in his bedroom is just not that valuable. Even if what he's saying, even if he has incredible insight into a subject matter, it doesn't mean that he knows what he's talking about on this one thing. And same thing with overreacting with this stuff. People are going to overreact. The blogosphere or whatever, people are going to overreact to seeing something that's bad, and it doesn't mean it's going to be bad, and people are going to overreact in a positive way, and that's the world we live in with the internet, and it kind of is what it is. So I want to know, we got practice coming up on Friday, and I like, what is the right way to write about rookies? And we can go into Falk, we can go into, Hill had another great play, another rookie that had a great play. last week. And it was a Hendon Hooker throw that was bad, but it was a really nice
had to make an athletic play,
but a very athletic play. So it's like, what is the right way to cover? You've covered a lot of rookies in your years. Like, what's the right way to cover these guys?
Well, I mean, I think you just couch it with as much context as you can, like you just said. I mean, Anthony Hill made an athletic play on a really bad throw by Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was the quarterback. So guess what level of offense and defense was on the field at the time that that Anthony Hill made that play? You know, it's not the same as Carnell Tate making the plays that he made with Cam Ward being the quarterback. So it tells you what level people were on the field at that stage. And so as a snapshot moment, nice. Does it tell you much about the overall practice he had, or tells you a little bit about where he ranked, all of that stuff? You're hungry for stuff. We'll give you some tidbits, but don't, when you repeat it, leave out the context.
Yeah, that's right. Daniel says about Route God, he was headed to an NFL interview, but he took the wrong route. I like that. Jacob says, throw out the baby with the bathwater. 2 Titan drills have gone viral in 2 meaningless practices. I don't know what the other Titan drill was. I don't even remember.
Yeah, it was that the Fossil set up a thing that just kind of see athleticism or whatnot. Gotcha. It was a meaningless drill that was testing some special teams skills, and everybody was like, "What is that?"
Ed says, "We all read into day one for Burks. Allow us this moment for hope." That's fair. That's totally fine, especially with that level of self-awareness. I agree.
But like the things that people want, I think I talked about this in my own pod, or because it was happening in my own pod. Like, how did this day one of OTAs compare to other day ones of OTAs? That's even Saleh himself said, like, you're not going to see much different out there. If you're looking for the difference between us and other stuff, today is not the day that you're going to. Didn't he say that? You were there,
well,
right?
He basically
said that.
His first line out of his mouth was like, "Everything's awesome."
Right.
Like meaning like none of it matters is right. How he basically was saying everybody's great right now. Everybody's feeling good. Everyone's happy. Everything's great. And everybody should be great until it starts to, you don't know until you face adversity what you're made of and what you're capable of and all this, which is totally correct.
Like, yeah. That's what I want to know. Like, hey, what's the communication look like between these guys and their players? You know, outside of Dayball being loud and Nick Holtz not being loud, that, you know, in 2 hours of watching stuff, you're not going to see some grand sweeping change, you know, from one regime to another. Having been around for all the regimes, you know, Mike Munchak did some crazy stuff where he changed the ordering of some stuff and had some periods that were, you know, just completely different, you know, okay, ball security period in the middle of practice out of nowhere. And we're going to do that every day. That's as dramatic a change as you're going to see. Football practices are basically the same across the league in terms of the layout. All right. We're going to do, you know, this offensive period, this defensive period simultaneously, individual, special team, you know, all of that stuff.
Group, it's position.
Yeah. Written in stone.
I do think that if you're asking me, and I don't think I asked Nick this, so I can maybe ask you this. And that is just sort of like, if you can, what is the thing that was most different about this practice than an OTA in the previous administration? And the only answer I think I can really come up, like, because there's all kinds of small things, right? Oh, Cam Ward's 10 pounds lighter. Oh, there's no seat oils. Oh, Tate looks pretty smooth and comfortable. Like, there's all kinds of things. Will Levis is throwing the ball a little bit softer. There's things that you notice on a granular level. If you're asking big picture, the only thing I would even come close to suggesting or asking about what's different would be, I did think the energy levels were a little bit different, but is that because it's new and they're all in their first public practice of the year? Or is it because Brian Dayball loves to scream and yell because that's kind of how his personality is wired? Maybe a little bit of both, but I don't know.
I'd say Dayball was a big factor in that.
Yeah.
He's a loud, animated guy. He's anticipating things playing out in an exact way in what he's talking into the quarterback's helmet. And when things pan out as he sees fit, he's pretty excited. And when they don't, he's pretty like, let's get, why didn't that work? So he's a fun guy to watch. And we're not allowed to tell you, it's against the rules to convey what we hear. So you have to kind of take our word for illustrating it big picture, which is.
I'm not allowed to talk about a third string offensive lineman coming off the field saying, ran it up their ass, Dave.
Well, you can couch it as you will.
Well, it's just it's just a player being like just going like, hey, it's like clapping or high fiving or something. It's not. It's more than that. Paul, we see this is from Daniel. We often see players transform their bodies from the rookie season to year 2. We know obviously Cam Ward talked about being 10 pounds lighter. I thought it was noticeable. I think I said something to you on the field, and I said, does he look thinner to you? And then we got later that he was a little bit lighter. Have you seen that with Ellick, DK, Helm, Winston? I think I thought Winston and Helm both looked a little bit leaner and more professional, if that's the right word. I did not, obviously,
Ellick and Jim were not out there for team stuff, so we did not see them in that way.
Was Femi? I didn't even notice Femi out there either.
Femi was not involved in team. He had his shirt off and was watching it. The defensive line, really, there was nobody out there except Martin, Falk, and Solomon Thomas. All the other guys were either not there or not participating.
Let me ask you this then. At what point do you allow yourself to think about the story of progress for an organization? Like the way I would ask you this is like, as an editor, I might go, hey, Paul, I really want to know when you feel comfortable writing the story that this is a more professional organization or a new organization or a different type of energy in the organization. Or, hey, when do you think you're comfortable after how many practices or how many good, bad days do you need to see before you say, I think Carnell Tate has a chance to be a pretty good player in his rookie year? I think that's the more interesting approach to this is, when do you feel comfortable writing those things?
I'll know it when I see it. You know, I don't think I know. I mean, last year's camp lacked a certain verve. All of us were kind of saying it, questioning it, writing something about it, writing their denials about it. And it certainly turned out to be the case because that's the foundation of everything you do, that you build in camp. And it certainly turned out that they were lacking a lot when the product came to mean something. You know, and it's believable that they could say, you know, they didn't, but it's believable they could say, yeah, things aren't quite coming together, but you know, there'll be a moment. They didn't say that. I think they would have been wiser to say that instead of pretending like nothing was going on. Either they were pretending like nothing was going on because they're in job-saving, face-saving mode, or they were completely naive to it and they didn't know what they were looking at, which is, I think, a worse indictment. Like, no, there's nothing to see here, which is what they were saying, really. We were all saying, boy, there's something missing here. It doesn't feel right. And they were saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing, no problem.
It was very lackluster.
Did they believe themselves when they were saying that? That'd be very interesting, you know, and maybe 5 years from now, when we run into Brian Callahan at in a combine hallway or something, you could have that conversation with him during a stroll and he'd say, yeah, you guys were right. I mean, I knew something was off.
So I think that's a really good example of because I can, you know, just personally having been there, being like, I always remember looking over being like, man, this is a really chill.
Really Atlanta, I remember really feeling it in Atlanta. Like, it's just not there.
So I'm curious, do you have examples? Because we're going to talk about sort of the process of drafting Kevin Byard. I'm curious if there is a rookie player or a new regime moment where you kind of remember going, oh, that's what it looks like. That's, to your point about, you know it when you see it. Do you have a memory of a player or a coach or a rookie or a new free agent or somebody that was new and you going, that feels a little different. I think I need to dig into that a little bit, and then realizing that is the story, right? That there's something there.
Well, what jumps to mind is Vrabel being hands-on with guys, you know, and at the beginning, it felt performative, you know, it felt like, oh, this is a guy that is pretending to be young still.
Wishes he was still playing.
Right. You know, and we had seen, was it Sean Jefferson put on cleats one time and went out with the receivers and tried to do something a little bit more than what Vrabel does and got knocked on his ass. And I can't imagine that didn't. I mean, they were laughing at him. And I can't imagine that doesn't hurt you with your guys as much as they respect you. Like, he took it too far. And so I was thinking early on, like, this is a little too much from Vrabel. But the more he talked about it, like just wanting to get his hands on them and that he could really still feel something and get value out of that, and talking to guys about doing it and that they got value out of it. He was really teaching them something. By the end of that first camp, I came to see, like, this isn't performative. This is how he coaches, and he's got an advantage there in that he can do this. And a lot of other coaches aren't young enough, didn't play enough for it to have meaning. And also, I thought, I still think he took it too far where he said, I never played quarterback, so I can't answer that.
Right,
you have to ask them. And I thought, well, this guy is the head coach. He needs to know enough about quarterback to be able to answer that question. But I also think he was being candid in a way where he said, the nuance of that is not my job. That is somewhere where I am deferring to my quarterback coach and my coordinator. And that was actually a respectable thing. So things like that, I think you kind of discover along the way. And I think those are things I learned about Vrabel probably through that first training camp or, first half of his first season.
So Vrabel's a real hands-on coach.
And a meaningful opinion. And I mean, I don't know if Saleh does that or not. He's certainly physically fit enough to do it, but he didn't have the playing career to have him.
Reporters probably agree with you on that. I remember, I don't know why this one comes to mind. And I was actually talking to some staffers about this player. I don't know why it came up. Elijah Molden is a guy that I felt like in his first couple of practices that they were not only was he like, they totally trusted him on a PR level, but that like he was he understood what was happening on the field quickly and like knew what was going on. And I had somebody tell me at practice on Friday, like, man, we really wish. That was a bummer. We traded him away. We really wished he could have been around a long time. Like there was a sense that like this guy kind of knew the game right away. Maybe he didn't have the physical skills to be great, but I think that is, and we'll get to Kevin Byard in a second because that's kind of what happened with Byard. Like you draft a player in the third round in the first week of practice, you're like, oh, this guy belongs on the field. Like
Molden was kind of a fabric guy, and they weren't valuing the fabric at that point. They were really looking at the physical.
Yeah, that's probably true. Okay, a couple questions here from some of you guys in the comments. Sinkers Beverages, everybody, make sure you go to the in crowd, sign up for the in crowd. It's a great way to get some customer appreciation stuff. They got taste testings in there all the time that are free. Huge award-winning beer selection where you can get great local beer like Yazoo. You've got a huge bourbon selection, great wine expertise. They got the THC corner. They got mocktails. They got barware. They got mixers. They got anything you could ever need for your weekend needs, your party, an office party, a birthday party, a holiday party, a summer party. They've got you covered. If you're headed to the beach, for example, you need to bring some bevies, make sure you swing by and stock up at sinkersbeverages.com. Jacob says the old regime didn't allow receivers to go deep this time last year, if I recall correctly, and the deep ball was an issue. It's early, but can we expect to see more deep shots this season? I think Brian Daboll has that in his offense. So I don't know about that.
That is a good memory that they didn't want them running hard so early. That's not the case right now, but there's a different. They didn't put the rookies in the draft picks in action for the 2-day rookie mini camp. This regime, so everybody's got something where they're easing people into some stuff. And I will say, outside of Tate and outside of Hill making that play, and again, I told you it's on Hendon Hooker, so presume what you may about where he's playing in the pecking order. I didn't think rookies were particularly impactful in that play, or given a chance to be impactful, let's say. So take what you will from that. Outside of Tate,
Singleton wasn't really a big factor in much.
Singleton's not even in with his foot. But let's look at Fall.
Kanik, he was around.
Yeah, But let's look at Falk. Like I talked about all those guys being out, and Falk wasn't up high.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Daniel says, with all the movement and tight ends these days, the Rams using 3-6-5 guys at once, could the Titans add a third size matchup tight end? I think I'll give you my take on this. I really kind of like this room. I think it's gotten better. I think it's more versatile. I think Bellinger and Helm really create two different pieces of the puzzle at that position. I think Kanak can be a really interesting piece. DMR, I think, made a nice play in practice as well. I think the room is better because it's more versatile. I don't know if it's going to go extra big or size packages or 3 tight ends at one time. I don't know about that. But I did come away with, and PK, this was also one of my takeaways. On offense in particular, I feel like every room is better at the skill positions than it was last year. I think the receiver room, the running back room, the quarterback room, and the tight end room, all the offensive skill positions all seem to be more versatile, deeper, and better position groups than they were last year.
Well, it's hard not to be better, I will say. True. I do think I wouldn't leave Tyler Granson out of the tight end conversation. But in terms of these additions that people are asking for, I mean, maybe they stumble into something. But the idea that they're going to go out and get somebody at this stage that's going to change them philosophically, make them a better 3 tight or 2 tight team, that's done. I mean, if it happens by accident. But there's no tight end lurking out there that's going to help them change their stripes, right? So it's Helm, it's Bellinger, it's Granson. DMR to me is just another guy. It's Kanak. So Helm, Bellinger, Granson, Kanak are the 4. What are you doing with the 4? Are you keeping 4? I could see them keeping those 4 if they're going to play a lot of 2, or slipping somebody like Martin Robinson or Granson on the thing. I think DMR is what he is, and I don't think he's much.
Jabbar Martin says, wide receiver room, good riddance to Mason, Kinsey, and Restrepo. Restrepo is still very much there.
I will say, though, I think Osborne got a lot of run with the receivers out. So Io Manor was out, Chim was out, and Ridley was out. And the guy that benefited the most from that in terms of playing time was KJ Osborne. That's a good sign for KJ Osborne, who is a slot. And
he's been around a while. I mean, he's played in the NFL. I mean,
and we've talked about this, and I know Nick has made a very articulate point about this, about them liking the idea of backfilling the roster more with some guys who have some experience around the league, who you can count on a little bit more if you wind up in a jam and you've got to call them up from the practice squad, say, or if they're at the very back end of your roster and you need to activate them, a guy who's played some. And KJ Osborne had.
Dude, he said 3 500-yard seasons. Yeah,
he was just out of the mix last year, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's very promising for him very early, and maybe one of the best undrafted rookie free agents has been this Ty Montgomery, who, there you go. I don't think he's replacing Bryce Oliver. I think Bryce Oliver is right now, to me, very securely number 6.
Would Osborne not be? Would it be Osborne, Oliver, and Montgomery for 6, 7, and 8?
Yes, which means Restrepo and Kinsey are 9 and 10, and that's practice squad at best material. Montgomery catches the ball very well, and I will say, and I don't know about you, I've looked 3 times at the roster to check his height. He is a big 5'11" to me.
And he's thick too. Like he's got a strong lower body.
And he's not, while he seems slotty based on that size, he is a guy that can line up elsewhere. So he's not absolutely slot.
You don't accidentally have 120 catches and 1,500 yards in a single season. I don't care what level you play at. No, here's the thing. Like Carnell Tate is fluid, but very thin. Like Ty Montgomery is built. He is a thick, tall 5'11", like a big 5'11".
I mean, it's very early. You got to put pads on and all of that.
100%.
But right now, he looks like a promising.
And all those drills he was doing, like that low catch drill,
ball drill. He was one of 3 guys that plucked that ball in, and that's a hard drill.
On the very first drill, he did the best combination of, like, his feet were excellent. He didn't hit the rope, and then he was down and made the catch with 2 hands, and he did a great job. Him and Wagner, the Notre Dame tackle, were the 2 that I was looking at as going. Those are the 2 I would project to make the scout team. potentially this year and then build into those pieces next year. But yeah, Osborne is like a professional NFL player. Like he should be ahead of Bryce Oliver in theory. Theory.
Well, the thing that'll set Oliver apart again is special teams. Now, Oliver, I've heard is kind of a head case, was kind of a head case with that knee last year, which, he was on the verge of being back, on the verge of being back, on the verge of being back. Then they put him in a damn IR when he was on the verge of being back. Just never made it back, hurt that knee very early. If he can be healthy, he really is an excellent special teamer and showed some promise as a receiver. So this is make or break for him, I think. Like he's got to get healthy and be out there. He's certainly got a fossil endorsement.
Derek says, will the Titans be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? If the Titans struggle, could we see Big Jeff traded? I would say no to Big Jeff, and I would say sellers at the deadline. But
I don't. It's such a premature. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like last year where they're dumping.
I do. Yeah. I do want to create some beef here, though. Daniel says, when Dayball had Saquon, he utilized him as a receiver out of the backfield extensively. That went away from his offense when Saquon left. Could he lean back into with the Titans? Now, I'm going to set the scene here. Pollard and Spears had, I think, 90-plus targets last year. Singleton, I think, if healthy, will get some of those, but not many. I think, and one of the guys who looked really good on Thursday of last week, and a guy that Nick and I both like way more than you, is Tajay Spears. In general, I don't think he's a second contract big money guy. I don't know if he's a starting running back long term. I think he can absolutely be a 1A next year if Pollard moves on. But I want to know what you think of Tajay Spears, because I know you're a little bit more, you have more questions about him than me and Nick.
I just don't think he's a complete guy. I need to go look at the numbers. And maybe they'll prove me wrong. I don't like him running between the tackles. And so I like him in space, and I think Dayball will do a better job of designing things to get him the ball in space. I like him as a pass catcher a great deal, but I need my number 2 back to be a guy that can do everything the number 1 back can do. And I don't think he's that. I'm much more comfortable with Pollard taking a handoff and running between the tackles than I am with Spears. I don't trust him to stay healthy. And I think the team tends to overhype him in general. And I could see Singleton nudging into that role if he's good. It's hard to rearrange the depth chart at that spot and to spread those carries and touches out. But I hope he's not a second contract guy, and I hope they don't over rely on him, or I hope he turns into a much better between the tackles run.
So Derrick Henry in his first 2 seasons in the NFL, 1,200 yards rushing and 273 yards receiving. So he's about a 1,500-yard player.
I guess no missed games.
First 2 seasons. That's a good question. 31 games, only 4 starts. So he missed, it looks like 1 game potentially. Tajay Spears in his first 2 seasons had 29 games, so he missed 3 games. He had 1,370 yards from scrimmage, 105 targets, and he scored 8 touchdowns. His numbers.
He scored 8 touchdowns?
In his first 2 seasons. He had almost 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns in his first 2 years. Derrick Henry had 1,500 yards, ballpark, or 1,600. Like my point is that a guy can come out of that. I'm not suggesting
a guy could come out of it.
I am not suggesting that Tajay Spears is gonna be Derrick Henry. Blah 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 blah. That is not what I'm saying. So I want to be clear on this. I think that if he can prove to be healthy, which is a huge if, and if the question Jabari and you and everybody else has said, I think he is far more versatile. He's by far their best weapon out of the backfield, better than Singleton right now as a pass catcher.
Absolutely.
I think he's better between the tackles than you're giving him credit for. I don't think he's as professional.
Not good.
I don't think he's a professional polished runner the way Pollard is, but I think he is super physical. He's super tough. He breaks tackles. He doesn't shy away from contact, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think he could be in a tandem. He could be the guy that gets 150 carries and 50 targets or 50 catches, and then the second back gets 100 carries and 30. Like you could have a backfield with him and someone else, and I think that would be pretty good if he's even the 1A guy. Oh. I don't think he's elite, but I think he can be a lead back.
You're talking next year? Give him a new contract after Pollard's done?
Next year, that's right.
You think he and Singleton could be a backfield?
I'm hypothetically, I think that could absolutely work. Yeah. And
I don't know. I need to break down his carries by field area. 4.1 career wise, but he went from 4.5 to 3.7 in his second year to 3.9 in his third year. That's got to get
It
over
does.
4, I would say.
It does.
Yeah,
I think he's a more versatile
I'm
player.
probably too hard on him, but I do think he's way better at in space, and you got to create that space for him.
And I think this goes.
And I'd
back,
rather running back that can create his own space to a degree.
100%. And again, you got to find those guys. And I'm not saying they have that guy. But my point, like, I just think he is in the world of, like, let's go back and compare the Ridley Tate conversation for a second, right? At their best, if they both play full seasons, Calvin Ridley is the better receiver now today than Carnell Tate. Like now Tate should pass him and should become the better player and has more upside and a longer tail and is not as old. And
all right, let's put when should he pass him on that?
I think Calvin Ridley is the better NFL wide receiver today and will be for most of the season. I think by the end of the year, maybe the last 3 games, maybe.
What am I saying? One's going down, one's going up.
Maybe by the last 3 games,
mid-season.
Carnell Tate's your number 1.
I'm saying mid-season.
And that's fair. I'm just like right now, Calvin Ridley is a professional athlete who's got great talent and has a ton more experience. He's the better wide receiver. Right now, Tajay Spears is the far better third down pass catching running back than Nick Singleton is.
I need to dig into this. There's another thing I need to dig into, but I've expressed this here before. Option routes and Calvin Ridley scare me.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Where he has to think about it?
He's made some mental mistakes before. He feels a DB that's not there, turns out of bounds, some key drops and all of that stuff. And when I'm counting on him to read something and make the right decision in sync with the quarterback, I think there's more room for the kind of mental errors that Calvin Ridley has made in the past.
I think the best receiver on the team today is Calvin Ridley. The second best receiver on the team is probably Tate, but maybe Wan'Dale Robinson. I think you got to get all the way down to 4 and 5 before you start talking about Chimere DK and Alec Iomanner and KJ Osborne. Like DK is a really nice weapon and is super versatile, catches the ball really easily, and obviously is a special teams demon. I just think you got to kind of rank them in an accurate way, and I think it's going to take time for those younger players to catch a guy who's had a career of Ridley's caliber. I'm not saying he's great; he's not an elite player, but like he's a pretty good player when healthy. He's just got to be healthy and not maybe make some of those mental mistakes. All right, let's quickly
getting older.
And that there's 100% there. Bustin says way off topic, but that Indy 500 finish was electric. Yes, it was.
How about me? I haven't seen it.
It's very good. It's a very good finish. We watch it every year. It's a big deal. I've been to like 8 of them. It's a big deal in my family. My brother was born in Indianapolis, so we love the 500. It's the greatest spectacle in racing for a reason. Now the injuries on Spears is concerning, but he won't be back because he's a RAN guy, and new leadership always wants their guys.
Peter Skoronski's a RAN guy, and Peter Skoronski's going to be here as a foundational piece. They're not getting rid of every single RAN guy if they can help you. Like the primary RAN purge is over. He only had 2 draft classes. If there are a couple of guys left over that can help you, they're not getting rid of every single RAN.
That's right. All right. Speaking of draft classes, real quickly, paulkuharsky.com. Fill out our survey. Press forward midtn.news. Sinkers Beverages, support them as well. All the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. Don't overreact to internet content, social media, viral stuff. However, really good stuff that you should read and react to, and that is a story about drafting Kevin Byard. And Blake Bedingfield has told the story about Derrick Henry. He told the story recently with you around the Corey Davis pick and how John Robinson kind of surprised everybody with that pick. And now there's kind of a reliving history of Kevin Byard. And for those that don't remember, the NFL Combine invited 333 people to the NFL Combine. Kevin Byard was not one of them, despite the fact that every single metric, whether it was game tape, whether it was personality interviews, whether it was 40 time and measurables, like literally not a single thing about this prospect at the time said he should not have been invited. Like that's what makes me insane. Like, how did he not get invited? That's crazy to me.
It's crazy. And after he wasn't invited, then the interest still really perked up. And so 17 or 18 teams at least had a look at him from Blake's memory. I think it's a really interesting story, kind of primarily about the back channel stuff, the Titans and Blake. And I talked to other people. I interspersed some quotes here from Rick Stockstill, from Steve Ellis, who was the DB's coach at Middle Tennessee, and from Hadley Engelhart, Byard's agent, kind of confirming and weaving in their thoughts on what was going on with this. But there was another team that was hot on Byard, who was in range where the Titans were, and people don't remember so clearly, but in the trade back up to get Jack Conklin, the Titans gave up a third rounder. And that third rounder, Blake said, was the one that they had tabbed for Kevin Byard. And so,
which would have been too late, right? Like,
it was 76, I think,
and that would have been too late.
Might have been too late because the team that was hot for him was at 74.
The Chiefs at 4, at 74, we're gonna take him,
and so the Titans had the first pick of the third round, and it became about whether they were going to take him. And Blake lists a lot of the other players that a lot of other Titans people were interested in, a lot of whom were good. And there were a lot of good players in that section of the draft who are still in the league, including Byard, who's had quite a renaissance. He went to Philadelphia in the Titans trade, and he was not good, but he resurfaced in Chicago and had 2 good years. He's with the Patriots now, and I would expect, whatever he's got left in the tank, the Patriots will be able to get out of him with a coach who knows him well in Mike Vrabel. So I'd advise you to go to paulkuharsky.com. If you like this kind of draft intrigue and behind the scenes stuff, Blake shares a lot of what was going on as the Titans were falling in love with this guy and kind of towing a line on whether they were going to, they got to a point where it was take him now or no, you're not getting him.
Yeah, Yannick Ngakoue or Kevin Byard. By the way, Ngakoue, decent player.
It would have been a good pick.
To your point. Yeah, to your point. I find this fascinating, not because I nerd out on the machinations and the process of it all, but I also sometimes come away from these stories and then hearing the information about some of the stories that we all know, some of which we've been able to share on the record, some of which we cannot, where I think the fans' view of these really good organizations are that they are just like military organizations. Every decision is pre-decided and everything is perfect and on the up and up, and everybody knows exactly what they're going to do. Here's who we've got graded ahead of this guy, and we're going to take this guy if this happens, and blah, blah, blah. Everything is perfect. And I'm like, sometimes I hear these stories and read these accounts of drafts, and I'm like, they're all up there with their heads cut off running around like chickens. Like, they're all just like, they have an idea of what they want to do, and they do go execute it, but you have to be able to react in such real time to stuff that, like, they didn't know if Byard would be there at 64, and then he was, and then they got to decide whether or not we're going to take him here. We think we know the Chiefs want him at 74. Turns out they did. And so it's like some of it's false information, some of it's real information, some of it you're depending on a relationship, some of it the board is changing by the minute. I just think it's so much more chaotic than people realize. Like, it's total chaos.
The thing that strikes me as so interesting is, like, say they didn't get him, right? So then, like, he could probably write hundreds of stories about guys that they researched, like they researched Byard, who they did not wind up taking.
Right.
Right. I'd like to ask him to do one of those pieces. Like, who's a guy just like Byard that you did not get?
Like the 5 biggest regrets of your career. Yeah. Like, you didn't stand on the table
hard enough.
I know
Charles Bentley was somebody that Floyd Reese really loved.
Yeah.
Who went to the Saints, right? And I think I remember Floyd talking in later years, like, that's a guy that always
damn it.
He went right before us.
Right.
Whatever. And I may ask him to do a piece like that, like a guy. I don't know if that's going to get the clicks that this one will get, but that's kind of the advantage of being a subscription site. I think my people would be interested in that.
Do you think that's fair? Do you think portraying the draft process as it unfolds as so much more organized chaos and guesswork than people think it is? You think that's fair?
Listen, I mean, when you read Joe Rexroad's piece at The Athletic, which is the one that told me stuff I knew about Bedingfield off the record in his involvement in the Derrick Henry draft, which I never thought would go public, that, down to the minute, Blake was really urging Malarkey to get on board with that pick. And then Malarkey helped get Robinson on that pick, but that was all going on on in the second round in the moment that they were deciding, you're right. If DeMarco Murray gets hurt, we lose our identity, and Derrick Henry would help us maintain that. And that's an awfully good place to be. And that conversation wasn't sorted out until
it happens in seconds.
Live.
Right.
That's pretty crazy. And to me, I feel like that kind of indicts the process for how much these guys talk about being prepared for everything ahead of the time.
Right.
But I think it also shows you how you can't be prepared for everything.
That's right. Like, it reminds me of, and this is very, this is, it feels like how regular fans feel when they're like panicked about a fantasy draft pick.
Oh yeah,
it feels like that.
A little model of it. You feel it a little bit of what they do.
You're prepared. You've studied this stuff. You feel like you know who the two players you're going to organize. You've got them on your board, and then you're on the clock and you're going, wait a second, how do I feel about this?
And
what am I doing?
Guys, there's a surprise in front of you, like you're going to take a guy that's 8 picks behind, and then somebody
he's available
else
now. I just think it's way more like organized / maintenance chaos. Like, you're trying to maintain some sense of order inside of this. To your point, the process itself is just so chaotic.
See, and I like this part of it far more than I like I've got my board of 100.
Agree.
It's different than everybody else's board of 100. And this guy's lateral stat, like everybody thinks they're a scout, I just think is the biggest.
Well, there is, again, much like Route God, not to bring it full circle route here, but much like there's a place for people who do know ball and study athletes and try to give you the best projection of what those athletes will be. It's an inexact science. But that's a skill. The other skill is like storytelling around like why decisions were made, why a trade down or up was not made or was made, or why we had these 3 guys and we didn't expect this one to be here, and so we went with him because he was higher on our board, but like we really love this other player and we regret not taking him. Why did we decide that? I think autopsy stuff is so much. It's very interesting. I just think it's different, and both. I'm okay with both of them existing. Like. Yeah, at some point, those scouting reports are irrelevant, and Carnell Tate's on a practice field, and you got to see if he can run a bench route well. And
this is the kind of story I hope that's given real value to my site. Everybody's still, and I'll be doing it at some point, picking apart stuff that's left over from Thursday, and here's something completely different about a beloved, Titan.
I loved not to go back to that, but like. You can tell when a coach raves about a player specifically a little bit more than other guys. Like, he likes all of his guys, right? But like, you can tell that he really has an appreciation and respect for Wan'Dale Robinson. I think like he kind of across the board complimented his approach off the field, on the field, in the locker room as a professional, like very complimentary of how he does everything. And then of course he's not special teams, so he's the only receiver over there warming up the quarterbacks or whatever. So you could tell that he has a high level of respect for Wan'Dale, and Robinson looks like a consummate professional in one practice that I've seen. 2
very good receivers over there warming up the quarterbacks, and Wan'Dale Robinson and the owner's son-in-law.
Shoot or shoot, PK. Shoot or shoot.
Dude, they were coaching.
I appreciate that.
They were coaching Bryce on Sunday.
Why were they doing that?
He made one really good catch.
Why were they doing that?
But why they spend time coaching them, I don't know.
Make sure you got your shoulder turned on the seam route, Bryce. Make sure you got, what are we doing?
Because they want to keep their job. They want Bryce when it's contract renewal time to say,
what's his official title now? Like vice president of football ops or something like that?
I've got a little bit more to write.
And then there's
head of research as part of
head of research. Doesn't he have another one? Isn't he like
I've got
chief legal
football or something like that.
Why are we coaching? I mean, look, there should be lawyers who coach the legal football people.
Well, I would like to see a day like where there was such a big football legal issue that they had come and have to interrupt him catching footballs because he's got to do a football research or legal issue.
Can you stop practicing? We need operations have to happen over here. We need to do operations.
Got to call him off. You, Jim Wyatt, get in there and catch those balls. We need you to also go outside your lane, so that we could get
I would put TD and me on the list of people that could catch the best hands on the
Jared Buffer caught that first cam throw in the end zone of the new stadium. He was pretty sound.
Well, he's on the team. I'm talking about us.
Yeah, well, they're not bringing in
us goobers in the press.
You'd have to first sign all your legal documentation. I
That's
signed when I caught punts from Brett Kern. I had to sign.
You had to
sign away my life.
If you tear an ACL or get concussed while catching these punts, we're not legally obligated.
We won't even come and look at your knee. You'll have to have your reporter friends help you into the parking lot where you call your own ambulance.
And if one of your reporter friends gets hurt helping you, they need to sign paperwork as well.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Have a great week, everybody. We got one more practice on Friday, of course, this week. We got some more next week. And then actually, I think they're off next week. And then the week after they're back. So Nick and I will have a show this week later on, talking more practice. Otherwise, have a good one, PK.
Pleasure to see you, people. Go read the Kevin Byard story.
Yep, very much worth your time and a few bucks every month. PaulKuharsky.com. Fill out the survey, linked in the show notes, and please support all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network and Sinkers Beverages as well. For Paul, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next time.